Driscoll from Utah has been working in emergency rooms as an ER physician, where he himself had close encounters with patients who had near-death experiences. He described his own experiences in the best-selling book, Not Yet. We are very happy to have him joining us. Hello and welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be with you. It's an honor to be with you.
And yourself as a Western doctor who is also spiritual, how do we resolve this modern day conflict between science and faith when it comes to topics such as the afterlife?
Well, that's a difficult question. I don't know that we will solve that conflict in this life. I've never really viewed it as a conflict, however. I've always felt, since I was very small, that I was a spiritual being having a physical experience in this body. And my experiences in the emergency department fit with that paradigm. I had a very traditional Western medicine education. I'm very much a man of science. Just show me the data and I'll make my own decision. That said, I also had these profoundly spiritual experiences. And for me, medicine and science is much more about the physical and doesn't conflict with the spiritual, but they seem to be complementary in my world, not contradictory.
Interesting. Also in your book, you talk about resuscitating a man named Jeff Olson after a car accident that killed his wife. Explain your experience with his deceased wife in the operating room, operating on him.
Jeff Olson was involved in a horrible car crash a little over 20 years ago. At the scene of the accident, his wife was deceased at the scene. His 14-month-old son died in the car as well. Jeff was horribly injured and nearly died himself. He was flown to the trauma center where I was on duty. And when I went in to see Jeff in the trauma room, he was unconscious on a gurney, and several healthcare providers were already taking care of him. And standing above his gurney in the air was his recently deceased wife, Tamra. And I saw her there. I experienced her presence, and she communicated with me while he was unconscious on the gurney. A month after the accident, I couldn't speak to him about it at that time because he was unconscious. A month later, after several surgeries and having his leg amputated, I spoke with him in his hospital room. And I shared my experience with him, and he started to weep. And at that moment, he told me that he had actually left his body before it was even extricated from the car, and he'd risen up above the scene of the accident and met Tamra in the air, his deceased wife in the air, and she said, "You have to go back and raise our other son."
So profound. Dr. Driscoll, you also had your own experience connecting to the higher dimensional realms with the guidance of your brother who died when you were a child. Please explain what happened.
Well, my older brother, died in a farm accident when I was just almost 12 years old. And he's come to me a few times and taught me things. And on one occasion, just a few years ago, he came to me during meditation and he touched my hand. And when he touched my hand, the building that I was in faded into nothingness. And I was in this glorious, beautiful place that I think many people would describe as heaven. And he led me through this place and he showed me my life in review. It was very much like a near-death experience in some ways, but I was perfectly healthy. And he showed me the days of my life where significant, profound things had happened and how he'd intervened on my behalf on those days. And the reason I bring that up is because I've seen at least some measure of what might be on the other side of the veil. And it's been my experience, and I have many friends who have had near-death experiences. It's a little bit different for every person. And I'm not sure how somebody's experience and expectation affects what they encounter on the other side. But the thing that seems to be universal from the people I've talked to is it's a place of profound love and acceptance and non-judgment.
Dr. O'Driscoll, thank you so much for this very, very interesting insight. In the meantime, we're going to take a short break. Please don't go anywhere. We have much more coming up for you on Holy Land Uncovered. Stay tuned.